Good morning, Dee. How did your March come in?
You mean like a lion or a lamb?
Yes,
Well, it came in like a lamb, if I remember right, but then it was closely followed by a lion.
same here. It was mild when it started on Saturday, and then
Mhm.
Wednesday I woke up and we had a heavy dusting of snow on the ground.
Boo.
Boo.
So I'm not too happy with how our weather looks for tomorrow, which is Saturday, because we're recording on a Friday.
And I haven't really looked, although I know that beginning of the week is going to be lovely. And today is not lovely. It's very cold out there, but I'm going to make us happy because we're going to start another episode, Dee, and that always makes us happy.
It
Ready?
does.
Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we chat about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana, where I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, and I'm in the process of downsizing or right sizing my garden.
We are Garden Angelus because we love gardening. We want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But let's move on to this week's episode. All right, Carol, how is your garden?
So I didn't have much to report, but I wrote down quite a bit. So
Yeah, you've got quite a bit in the notes.
the crocuses are still going strong, but the cold weather has sort of knocked them back. And to me, they look like little purple matchsticks sticking up all over the yard because they will not open in this cold weather. They're protecting their pollen
They're
because
shivering.
they know the bees aren't going to come out in this cold weather.
Mm-mm.
So, but I was backing out of the driveway on Wednesday, and what did I spy with my little eye?
I don't
Hiding,
know.
hiding amongst the crocuses and the leaves, reticulated iris in bloom. So there
Hmm.
was that. And then I was going to go to the greenhouse on Monday, but it
Yep.
was just too cold. And
Yeah.
so
Weren't you
I,
gonna buy pansies?
yeah, I was going to buy
Yeah.
pansies and violas. And I thought it's too cold. And some of my containers still had ice in them. So I thought, well, that's silliness. So I said I'd be by at the end of the week, but I'm going to probably message them today and say, I'll just be there on Monday. This
Yeah.
chill has got to go. So, but then I went to Aldi, not once, but twice, Dee. Because
And
I went there on Tuesday and the Aldi finds aisle where all the good stuff is was kind of
Mhm.
gutted. And this lady says, oh, they restock on Wednesdays. So I happened to be
Okay.
down that way. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to run into Aldi. And I bought this. You're going to see it. Look at this cute little planter I bought.
Oh, that is cute.
Isn't that
I like its
adorable?
face. It's a snail.
It is a snail. $4.
Wow. That's awesome.
So I bought two. I bought the last two. And it's got a little plug. So it has a little drainage hole, which is all very nice. So now I
Yeah.
have to decide, do I plant houseplant that I already have in there? Or should I go buy like some cute little fern or something like that to plant in there? So
Cute
decisions,
little
decisions.
fern. I vote for cute little fern.
I thought you would. I thought with little bits of moss around it.
Perfect, because that's where a snail loves to hang out.
And then I went to Costco and there's a warning for people. There are some rather large pots and they will jump into your cart and you will buy 3 of them and bring them home with sort of an idea of what you're going to do with them, but not quite knowing what you're doing with them.
Hmm.
So I did buy 3 big containers at Costco and I kind of have an idea for them and we'll talk about it at some point. But anyway, your garden has been doing a lot this week.
It was a good week, really good week. So we were on a conference call, you and I, and some friends
Yes,
of ours from Garden Com, and all of a sudden, Luz and his band of merry men showed up, and 2 of them, and he was like, "I'm here to downsize the garden." Okay, we talked about this like 2 months ago, so
right?
I was unprepared because he had texted me that morning and thought it was too wet because we had rain, but no, and it was really wet, but he did it anyway. So we cut the back garden in half, and I shared about it in a reel on Instagram yesterday, but I don't think people really got an idea of how much smaller it is. So today I took some pictures and showed them to you and you go, "Yeah, you can't tell how much you took off until you show it from that angle." So
Exactly.
I might do a post with a before and after, and then I'm going to do a reel where I go down there and talk. So, going to do that. And then we also removed the two gardens at the front of my lawn, and I might plant. It's pretty shocking. I didn't realize how much garden was really there. And
Right?
then on top of it, it just there's a sidewalk next to my greenhouse, but I mean, my greenhouse looks kind of bare. So I thought, well, maybe I will put just some Asian boxwoods down the side, which mimic the other boxwoods. I haven't decided yet, but that's inexpensive, easy way to give it a little bit of color all year long, the same color. And then so then yesterday, I've been on the hunt for pansies and blue pansies. And then
As
what
one
did you,
does.
as one does, got to have blue. And I want to say that's because of my friend Teresa Von Dawkins, who is up in Tulsa. She puts blue pansies and she grows hers from seed. I tried the mycetum. I've got like 3 left that are down in the basement under lights. And Teresa puts them in pots with all kinds of things and they just look great. So I'm going to put them with my roses because pink roses and blue pansies, that's pretty.
It
And
does
then
sound very nice.
they stay till about June here. But I discovered something yesterday because I went down to Norman to find some frizzle sizzles and
And
I didn't
Norman
find any.
is how far south of you?
It's an hour. It's an hour south of me. And so I learned something new yesterday. They don't plant pansies in the spring at all. And
Really?
yeah, no, there were no pansies to be had. There were some at the greenhouse that were left over from last fall, but they look as ratty as mine in my garden from last
Right,
fall.
right. Not
And
an
I was like,
upgrade.
I want fresh pansies, pansies that look beautiful. So anyway, I was told in no uncertain terms at another nursery down there, I won't say which one, that I was way too late to be growing pansies. And I thought, huh? But then it dawned on me when I got over to the greenhouse, I thought, oh, they don't plant them in the spring because it gets warmer there so much
Uh,
faster. Because really, up where I live out in the country, I'm almost zone A, 7A, and they're really 8A. So that's a whole zone
yeah.
difference. So
Yeah, that
that
is.
was a good thing to learn, right?
It
And
is.
then when I was at Markham's nursery, which is also down there, it's in the Norman Goldsby area, but they have 4 locations now. They're big, but it's family owned. In fact, Bill Markham just passed away. And I found 2 of these cobalt blue pots, and they jumped in my cart.
It is funny how that happens. Now,
They are fast.
I think you put those on your story on Instagram.
I did. And when I plant them, I'm going to turn it into a reel. It's going to be pretty.
It's going to be very pretty because I get confused. Did Dee text me that? Did Dee message me on Instagram that? Did she
Here
message
too.
me on Facebook? Or did she put it on a story for everybody?
We talk about gardening all week long. And so it's like, where was that? I don't know where, because you do that too. And I'm like, oh gosh, was that on Instagram? Anyway, some funny stuff has been coming out on Instagram, by the way. And I
Oh,
have
yes.
been sharing it with you. People
Yes,
are so clever. I'm not
they
that
are.
clever.
I
All
don't,
right.
yeah.
So I've also been sowing seeds in the greenhouse. I'm not so worried about the mice now. They have more to eat than they did in December. And also, I've been growing things they're not interested in. So it's almost time to plant out the calendula. It's big. And and I planted out my onions. I did a lot this week, Carol. I was busy.
You did.
Yeah.
I feel
So,
like all I did was buy stuff and wait for the weather. Let's talk about our favorites.
well, you can go first.
Well, in keeping up with our blue theme, the Iris reticulata Lady Beatrix Stanley, who is the most beautiful blue, she
Yeah, she is.
also, as soon as I saw that dark purple one in front, I went out to the back garden and I know exactly where Lady Beatrix is. There's just one little spot of her. And yet, sure enough, she was blooming and she looks so good. She's getting a little crowded out by some Ansonia. So I think once she's done blooming, I will dig her up and kind of move her. I'll leave some there, but I'm going to move her around a little bit. But anyway, so that's my favorite, Iris reticulata, Lady Beatrix Stanley.
And you shared it on your stories, right? No, you did a
I
post.
I did a post with the iris. Yes, a
And
post.
then I shared it on the Garden Angeles stories today.
Thank
So
you. Thank you
you're
very
welcome.
much.
You're welcome. Least I can do. I don't do much. I mean, Carol does all the work on the podcast.
I
I
don't do
literally
all the
show
work.
up. Okay, so in my case, I bet no one can guess.
Can I guess? Please let me guess. Let me guess. Let me
Oh,
guess.
you go right ahead.
The blue pots and the blue pansies and violas are your favorite this week.
Yes. Yes. I mean, honest to goodness, and really the viola isn't truly blue. It's that really light purple that looks
Yes.
so great with green.
Yes.
And I put that in a pot too. And it's just like iridescent, especially on a cloudy day.
Yes.
We have plenty of those in March. So, question of the week. Oh, you forgot to mention why. Okay, this was one thing we wanted to mention. Your Irish reticulata are blooming, and mine, I went and checked when I saw yours, are not. Mine are just sitting there. Now they have put up their little tiny leaves.
Little tiny leaves, which grow into kind of long, swordy like leaves, not swords, but little.
They look like spears, kind of.
Yeah, spears are thick grasses, kind of.
Yeah,
They'll
grass-like.
stiff. So why are mine blooming and yours are not? And I would like to say it would be my superior gardening skills, but I know that that is not correct. It is because of the microclimate. Even though I am 6A and you are 7A, yours must be in a very cold part of your garden because mine are kind
They're
of
on the
out in the open. So,
Mine are on the north side of my
yes,
house in a
yes,
protected area, but it's the north side.
yes. So I
Cold.
would not expect those to bloom readily, quickly.
No. And in fact, I have a problem there because remember Sunshine Ligustrum? And I really thought it was pretty. And I made mine into little topiaries because I don't really like topiaries, but I like Sunshine Ligustrum as a topiary. I
Yes,
showed
okay.
you, yeah, showed you last fall where there was
Yeah.
something wrong with one of them. I think it died. So I'm going to
Oh,
have to, after the reticulata blooms, I'm going to have to plant something there and then put the reticulata back. Or maybe not put something there. Maybe just have a little bed of reticulata in front of the two boxwoods. I don't know. They're not
it,
happy. The other one's got the ick too, whatever it is.
yeah. Now I find that most Iris reticulata rebloom readily for me. You said they don't always rebloom readily for you.
Well, that's changed. I found out that I was messing around in their spot too much. And
I
so what I
remember
was
now.
doing, yeah, I was digging them up. So I put them in this spot because I don't ever do anything to it. I mean, I just
Right.
water it. So this will disturb them, but there's something really wrong with those. The leaves on the sunshine ligustrum have curled up and turned brown and there's some kind of ick. And I did look it up and some other people are having problems with it too. I'm going to guess it's some kind of a fungus or something,
Right.
but I don't care about it enough to, you know what I mean? I'm just going to dig it up. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah. I know what you're
Which
saying.
ties us into our question of the week. And I just want to say, I know the answers to lots of questions, but I don't always know the answer. And I have to go research it just like anybody else. And this
Right.
first question is like that.
Wait, before we get off that question, I do want to say the one iris that has not returned reliably for me, and I planted it 10 years ago, was all the ones I planted are purples and blues, but there's one called
Mhm.
Iris stanfortii, which is yellow. That one is supposedly notorious for not being a rebloomer. And I just made a note that I would like to order some because I think that pop of yellow, if it would come in, would be very nice out there. So anyway,
Yeah, and there's also one other one that's a name variety that has a bunch of yellow in it, and I'd have to go look it up because I saw it the other day online. You know, that's true of almost anything that is extremely unusual within a plant color palette. So, zinnias, for example, the brights, which are closer to their norm,
yeah,
they're easier to grow than the light ones, and I learned that lesson. Doesn't mean you don't grow the light ones if you want them. It just means they're going to be more bug ridden.
that's right.
Hydrangeas that are closer to our native hydrangeas, easier to grow than, say, the big leaf hydrangeas in my climate. So anything that is closer to the original source, I won't say native because not everything's native, but if it's, For tulips, if it's a certain kind of tulip that's closer to the norm, the original one, then it's easier to grow. Same thing with daffodils.
Yeah. So we have several questions, and I put them on there because, well, you had the first question, so you want to do that one real quick?
Yeah, I'll ask it, and then you liked my answer to him, and so you're going to answer it. Ready? I was wondering if you have good advice for bed shrubs that tolerate dog urine well and don't die or lose sections of the plant due to that. I'm also wanting to get advice on some plants or shrubs that would thrive better than some of what I have presently. We don't live far from you, and I wonder if a phone call might be a good way to see if this is something you're interested in helping me with. How did I answer that, Carol?
Yes, you would be glad to do some garden coaching for them
Sure.
and to hook up, and you could figure that out. How else did you answer that, Dia?
I also said that if he wanted a quick free answer, he could go to the Master Gardeners or
Ah,
go to
yes.
Oklahoma State University's Extension Service because perhaps they've written on that. But I explained to him that I would have to research that and really work at it. So therefore, I would need to charge him. It's not something I just know off the top of my head. I have some theories, but dog urine isn't really good for plants.
No, and if you have a dog that constantly is hiking their leg on a shrub or the same
So, yeah.
spot, I would be hosing that down all the time or train
Mhm.
them to go someplace else. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't plant shrubs right where I get that the other question I get asked a lot is, "My dog runs up and down this fence. What can I plant here to A, stop him, or B, that he won't destroy by running up and down the fence?"
And the answer is the dog's going to run up and down up that fence. So you need to landscape accordingly and just move your planting out a little bit and give him that run back there. It's
Yeah,
hard to
because
keep a dog from doing
yeah,
that.
and the thing is dogs there's a dog next door, which is or something, this is why he runs up and down that fence. Landscaping is not gonna stop him, and
No,
you're gonna lose plants. That's it.
that's true. All right. So here's the next question. This is from a listener in Memphis. Says, did you have good success with the wool pellets mentioned on a previous podcast? Dee, I think we mentioned these on a podcast in 2019 when we
Uh,
had come back from Utah and we were
yep,
sent samples. And wool pellets are the scraps and the gunk that they pick up off the floor after they've sheared all the sheep. And they have done university studies where they have added this to the soil and it adds nutrients and it also helps to hold the moisture retention. They sent a sample bag to me, and I'm gonna be honest that I did not have a chance
I
to try
did.
it. So, now we should mention you did try it. You will not be using it again because with alpha-gal syndrome, this is a mammal product.
It is
And
a mammal product, and it also has lanolin, and we are I am, I should speak only to me. I am highly allergic to lanolin and wool. I never was good with wool anyway, but back before I had alpha-gal or knew I had alpha-gal, I did put these in with my pots and they did retain moisture. The other idea is that because it's wool, it will add some nutrients to the soil. I can't tell you if it added nutrients or not. I think it did okay, and yeah, that's about it.
well, and I'm gonna say it's not so much the wool is adding the nutrients, it's the sheep manure that's getting
Yeah,
mixed in because, like I said,
probably.
this is what's left over after the good wool is sent off to the mill to be made into yarn or fabric or whatever. This is really that it's like in a wood shop, cleaning up the wood
Mhm.
shavings off the floor. This is cleaning up the sheep shavings off the floor. So I say buy a bag, give it a try. And especially in Memphis, where it can be kind of dry in the summertime and very hot, it may help
Yeah.
you keep water in the pots a little bit longer and lessen your watering needs, but probably not by much.
And our friend Nanandra had alpacas, and she used to use their wool on her paths to cut down on weeds and also
Yes.
and then she would take the paths and once it broke down, she'd flip it into her garden. And she loved it. She thought it worked great. So there is a use for it.
There is, and I bought alpaca wool from her because she also sold it, and you could put it in a suet feeder, and
Oh
then the
yeah.
birds would pick out the alpaca fur and use it to line their bird's nest. So I put some out there one year for them. I'm not going to say that they devoured it and used it to make luxurious nests, but I felt like I was doing something for them.
Yeah. Right now my bird feeders are empty, so I'm gonna have to go out there and fill them again because the birds are all looking at me through the window.
So
Okay.
our,
We had a
our
lot of
next,
questions this week.
well, this is our last question. And this one came to us from a listener in Northern Wyoming, Zone 4B. She says, 3 years ago, I moved to a new house and inherited some obviously well-loved lilac bushes. They are beautiful, tall, and smell gorgeous in the spring. I bet they do.
I
Uh,
bet.
I am in Zone 4B, Northern Wyoming. 4B, poor thing.
Yeah, poor thing. First, let's all take a moment for Liz. Whew. Good on
4B,
you for gardening. All right, keep going.
exactly. She says, I do not know how to best care for these beauties. When should I trim them? How should I trim them? They sometimes get out of control by putting out what I think are suckers. How do I deal with these? I've not fertilized them whatsoever because they do appear to be well established, but I will definitely feed them if they need it. How do I know? What can I do to encourage them to grow more flowers and less leaves? So I said, if you're going to trim them, you want to trim them right after they're flowering because they do form the flowers in mid to late summer. Around here, I say by 4th of July, it's too late. And that's only if you think that they need a little bit of reshaping. The suckers, you can remove them, but also if you have some really old branches that you can see are either dying out or producing very few flowers, you can cut those out and then those suckers will come up and kind of replace them. So, and then
Okay. You can fertilize them, but you don't have to.
no, I don't fertilize my shrubs as a
How about
general
just
rule.
put down some nice compost around them?
Yeah,
You know, that would be nice. Whatever compost is suggested in your area, Liz, because here I use a lot of back to nature or my own compost from shredded leaves. And then what I was going to say about mine, I have one. I have two Korean ones, and then I have one that is Chinese, and it is old. It came from Bill's mother by way of Bill's grandmother. And
that's old.
so it's old, and it is a good 7 feet tall now. It's a big old thing. And it sits out by my fence. And I have to be honest, Liz, I've never done a doggone thing to that shrub since I put it there, except water it in the first year. So I don't trim it back. I don't do anything to it. But you made me think I would love to take some cuttings of it after it blooms and
Yes.
then create a line of those down that fence. That'd be awesome because that would smell so good. But am I going to do that? I'm probably not, but it sounds like a good thing. Here's the thing. If you do something like that, you want to have the same variety down the fence because all the new varieties out there are ones that are done to be small because people have small gardens now.
Right.
So
Right.
it wouldn't look right, A. And I'll be honest, every one of them I've tried to plant that's been modern, except those two Korean Miss Kims. They just haven't done well here. And I don't know why. They just
I don't
haven't.
know. But when you say Chinese lilac, I would like to say that is the common lilac, we would call it here,
Common.
Syringa vulgaris.
Yes.
That's probably
Yes.
what she has. That's the old fashioned one.
It's the one everybody had way back when.
And I'm going to say that around here, they have struggled a little bit because we've had some late freezes and they tend to be very early bloomers, and then it got really dry in the summertime and a lot of them ended up with some bacteria wilt problems. So, but
They also
they're,
get borers. I mean,
yeah,
they have some problems, but I'll be honest, this one's never had a lick of
but
problems.
I was going to say they're pretty tough. And so if you
They're
kind of
tough.
get rid of the branch that's like looking like dog do, then you can end up with a pretty nice shrub in its place. That's why they're around so long. Tough
There
old
you go.
birds, tough old
Tough,
gals.
like those daffodils people plant at that they find at the homesteads, the abandoned homesteads.
Exactly. Here's our quote for the flowers. I have never been drawn to luxury. I love the simple things, coffee shops, books, and people who try to understand.
I love that.
Y.S. Perez. I don't know who that is.
I don't know, but I sure do love it. So it's all good.
So we're to the letter B, and we're going to talk about some annuals and a couple of perennials. And I snuck an extra perennial in there on you, Dee.
Oh, did you? Good. So for annuals, you brought up Baby's Breath and Bells of Ireland. And these are grandma annuals, which fits into grandma core. And they're also cut flower specialties, both. And are they worth it to make room for in your garden.
And I'm going to confess, Dee, that I have limited experience with both of these. I have grown baby's breath successfully,
Me too.
and I have wanted to grow bells of Ireland because, I'm freaked with the color green. But let's talk about baby's breath first.
Okay.
Have you
We have
grown
some
it?
seeds. I sure have. I grew it back when I was young. Yeah. And you know what? Never grew it again.
Because for any particular reason?
Because it just doesn't do much. And it was over with really fast and it took up some room and I just grew other things. I'm really not willing to spend a lot of time on something that doesn't give me some bang for my buck.
Right. And so this is one, if you have a little row in your raised bed garden or your vegetable garden and you want to put this in with cut flowers,
Sure.
Burpee suggests that you direct sow this after all danger of frost, and they have one called Gypsy Pink, which is
Uh-huh.
if you don't want the white, and the typical white one is Covent Garden White. But I have bad news about Gypsy Pink.
Yeah.
It's sold out.
What?
It's sold out on
Oh.
Burpee.
And it's pink. And the truth is, we never see it anywhere. So I'm guessing it's not easy to grow or, I don't know any flower farmers who grow it at all, but maybe.
Here's
We also we got an AAS winner of Gypsophilia once. So let me look it
last
up.
year. Last year we did, and you look up what the variety is, and we'll put a link to it. I will say that I winter sowed it last year, and I had a couple of seedlings. And then, as sometimes happens, I planted the seedlings out and lost track of them, and I'm sure they dried out, and Carol did not care for them properly, and that was the end of the little baby's breath experiment. But
Yes.
and this goes back to my previous house, so over 27 years ago, I did grow some baby's breath, and I remember it was really nice. It was on the corner of the back, and I got to almost 2 feet tall, and it was a big cloud of white flowers, and I thought it was pretty nice, but that was it.
Yeah. I didn't think it showed much for it. So I'm looking for this baby's breath and I haven't found it yet. So I'll look at my seed stash. They're still in there
Yeah,
in their
we'll put a
seed
link if we
envelope.
find it. I
Okay.
I could
So
look
do
as
you,
well, but I
oh, here
won't.
it is. It's Gypsy White. That's the name of it.
Gypsy White. So I bet Gypsy Pink is related.
I bet they are too. And I bet Gypsy White won out. It's supposed to have a little bit. Oh, and guess what? There's also Gypsy Deep Rose. So I looked on Park Seed, so people know. Park Seed has an AAS section. And so there's Gypsy White Improved, and then there's Gypsy Deep Rose. So there you go.
So if I was going to grow them again, I would definitely I'd probably go with this Gypsy series.
Yeah, I would too
So
if I tried them.
if I tried them, but we obviously are not all that. Oh my gosh, I have to grow these now. I would like to grow the next annual, which is Bales of Ireland.
I've grown it.
And I looked up the botanical name,
Yeah,
Molicella lavis, which sounds very Italian to me.
it does. Bells of Ireland has an Italian name. So the green flowers, it's a cut flower. I mean, cut flower growers grow it in the spring really early. In
Yes,
fact, most flower farmers get it in as plugs because you can grow it from seed, but it's easier to get in plugs because at least in my state, you have to get it in so early to get it to go. Because as soon as
right?
it gets hot, your stems get about, an inch and a half tall
That's not very
and
tall.
then the flowers shatter. So it's a tough one because here you have to grow it under tunnels to give it protection so it doesn't freeze out. So here's my suggestion. If you want to grow bells of Ireland, or I think gypsophilia too, go to Lisa Ziegler. I know she talks about bells of Ireland on her website,
Yeah,
and I'm sure she talks about the other one too. Just bear in mind that she lives south of you and I. So for her, it's kind of almost a winter flower, and her spring starts earlier. So just something to keep in mind.
yeah, because when I looked it up on Burpee, this one also said to direct sow, but after all danger of frost. And so it's one
I
of
don't
those
think
things,
so.
if it got really hot, I
There's
don't
like
know.
this tiny, tiny window at least in my state, between it's after danger of frost before it gets hot. I mean, like very tiny, tiny.
Tiny.
Yeah. So
So
there you go.
neither flower is going to be showy enough or in such high demand by me that we're going to give it a starring role in our gardens. It's safe to say.
No, we're not. I mean, I did it last year and mine, I got like 2 stalks out of it. And I was like, this is not worth it to me. I like things that bloom and bloom and bloom.
And so the next, we're going to talk about 2 perennials. They do not bloom and bloom and bloom. And I'm not sure. You said the first one, the common name is okay. Look, your cat has joined the video.
Yes, there she is. She's like, what are you two doing?
Like we're recording a podcast and we're going to put this video out. So please
That's
behave,
okay.
kitty cat. So the first bee is Bergenia cordifolia, which has the common name of pig squeak. And this is a fun one to have in the shade if you have kids, because if you rub the leaf between your finger and your thumb, it makes us sound like a pig squeak, hence the
That's
common
funny.
name. It has
Have you
big,
grown it?
I have.
Oh, cool.
It has big pink flowers that like cluster of pink flowers that come along in summer. Once those bloom, you should deadhead those. And then this is one you should leave the foliage all winter because it needs that to create energy in its roots and give it the best chance to overwinter. And so Proven Winners does have one, and I would like you to guess the common name, even though I have written it in our show notes.
I don't see it. You tell me.
Miss Piggy.
Okay, that's funny. I like it, but I'm not going to grow it.
It's zoned 4 to 8, and if you have some shade, I think give Pig Squeak a chance.
Give give Miss Piggy a chance.
Give Miss Piggy a chance, and if you have little kids and stuff, and it's fun to have kids interact with the garden, and like, hey, do this, and listen to the pig squeal. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
okay.
this summer I'll take a video of me rubbing the leaves of pig
Yeah,
squeak.
do, because I want to hear it. I
Yeah,
really do.
it sounds like
I've
a pig
never,
squeaking.
how funny. That is really funny. So then you came up with another one. You came up with Brunnera.
Brunnera. Do you
Oh,
grow
Brunnera.
Brunnera?
Yeah, I've grown it. Uh-huh.
Siberian bug gloss is the other
Yeah.
common name. But the one that people grow is the one I see everywhere is
Jack
Brunnera.
Frost.
Yes, Macrophylla, Jack Frost, silvery variegated leaves. And so it also likes the shade, and it's sometimes
Yeah.
called false forget-me-not because it has small blue flowers.
I saw it yesterday at Markham's nursery. It
Did you
was
buy
already
it?
blue. No, it was already blooming in the greenhouse. And so, you know, and I don't, I've only grown it once. And I was thinking to myself, I don't even know if this is deer proof. And that's my new thing is I have to choose plants that are
You know
deer
what?
resistant. There is no deer proof.
I don't know if this is deer proof either.
Yeah.
I never think about that. And so, but it is
I
an
mean, no,
easy shade annual. I mean, and once you plant it, you'll have it. It tolerates quite a bit. And I've got some out there, and it's had shrubs kind of growing up and around it, and it's still kind of plugging along. And it's probably like, can you move me out from under this shrub, Carol? I would like to be better for you.
there's a lot of things here that think that.
They
Okay, I
just,
got to put the cat down. Her fur is all over me because she's shedding. Oh, I'll have to
goodness
leave
sake.
for a minute. Okay, goodness. All right. Next.
That's it
Do
for
I
the
do
bee
the
flowers. Baby's breath,
Okay.
bells of Ireland, Bergenia, and Brunnera.
Whew, that's a lot of info. Ready for the next quote?
I am.
Give me a quiet life, one where I can hear the trees rustling in the wind, raindrops on the windows, pages of a book being turned, coffee being brewed, and the heartbeats of the ones I love. And that's by Shelby Dursa.
Lovely.
Vegetables. B is for yum.
We Butterhead and Bibb lettuce. We kind of cheated because we could have done lettuce. Do we need to pause the video and let you kind of get yourself back together after all the cat fur?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Russian
Or
blues have little tiny, they have really short fur and it gets into my moisturizer and woo. Okay. So lettuce. We love lettuce.
Butterhead and Bibhead. Butterhead and Bibhead. Listen to me. Butterhead and Bibb lettuce.
Hmm. How
And
are they
these,
different?
I think the Butterhead has a little bit better taste than the Bibb lettuce. They will both form a small head if you let them.
I think for L, we should do loose leaf lettuce.
Yeah, we could probably come up with a lettuce for every letter of the alphabet if we tried really hard.
There's a lot of lettuce out there, and I planted a bunch of it yesterday
I still haven't
outside.
planted mine.
I'm a little late, but I planted it in my pots,
Do
so we'll
you
see.
direct sow your lettuce in the garden like I do?
Yeah, most of the time I do. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you can start it inside really early and then set it out, but if you're gonna do that, just buy it at your local nursery, but I think it comes along so fast that you don't even need to do that.
My dad used to start it indoors and then he would plant out,
Mhm.
especially the Bibb lettuces. And here, the reason you would do that is beat the heat again because once it gets hot, lettuce bolts and
Or
sends up
taste
that
bitter.
or taste bitter. And then it's like, well, nobody wants that. So the best advice I ever read about growing lettuce and transplanting it, or if you're going to move it in the garden to spread it out after you've seeded it, was from Hal Borland's wife. Remember?
Yes, I don't remember the advice though.
She wrote it. He wrote it in a 1957 book. I wrote a blog post about it that won an award from the National Federation of Press Women. But
Yeah.
anyway, she said he said that she would go out in the rain and move the lettuce
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
because lettuce doesn't like to dry out. And so transplanting very much shocks a plant. So if you would do it when it's really moist out, or just make sure you water it really, really well after you've moved it, that will help.
I just remembered that last spring I did plant lettuce seeds in pots, and then I transplanted it. It was because I was growing baby gem, which is a butterhead, and they make little tiny butterheads. They're so cute, and it's my husband's favorite lettuce. And so I did it for him last year, but gosh, that was a lot of trouble. So no, I'm
So
not
you're
doing that this year.
not doing it
No.
this year. No.
No, this year I just put it out there in my pots on the side of the fencing that runs down the middle. I put it on this side of it over by the potager, and then I blocked all the entrances from the deer. So it looks a little messy right now. My husband was laughing at me yesterday when he got home because he had to walk through there and he with his walker and he was like, D. And I said, I know it's the deer. I planted a bunch of lettuce and I planted some more kale. Oh, I planted broccoli plants just for fun. I saw them at the nursery.
Just because you thought the European cabbage butterflies didn't have any place to lay eggs, so Dee thought she would plant some broccoli and give them their little place to lay eggs, so they're little
I
green
can cover
worms.
'em.
You better
No,
cover them. You better
yeah,
cover them.
probably pretty fast. Oh well, it is what it is.
Anyway,
Okay,
Bibb,
so
butterhead,
Bibb,
broccoli. We are done with the bees in the vegetable garden for the moment. Then
easy to grow.
the reason we didn't talk about beets is because we talked about beets a couple weeks ago.
We did, and last year and the year before. We've talked about beets, I think, every year.
We beat the bees to death. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Your turn.
Never cut a tree down in the wintertime. Never make a negative decision in the low time. Never make your most important decisions when you are in your worst moods. Wait, be patient. The storm will pass. The spring will come. Robert H. Schuller.
What great advice!
Yes,
And Robert Schuller was a motivational minister
he
back in
was.
the 60s and the
Yes,
80s and 70s. And I think that's some of the best advice I've ever read. Don't make decisions when you're really sad. And winter is hard for gardeners.
it is.
So
It
don't
is.
do it then. Wait. And then when you're out there redoing your garden, turn to your landscape person and say, I want that Eastern red cedar gone. And he says, I'll be here next week.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So on the bookshelf this week, we have a new book called Go Forth and Forage, a guide to foraging over 50 of the most common edible and medicinal North American mushrooms. And it is by Whitney Johnson. And she is on Instagram as Appalachian Forager. Look,
Yay. Okay, I had to find mine. I was like, where did I put it?
what's
Um,
interesting about this book, Dee,
mhm.
first of all, she has a picture of herself in there.
Yeah, it's
And
cute.
she looks like she is having the best fun foraging of
This is
anybody.
another one too, and
Yes.
she's having a great time. She's cute.
So the cover does not feature the morel mushroom, which is the only one that I know that is edible.
You know, that picture I showed of her, she is holding a whole bunch of morels. And morel season in Oklahoma, as we've discussed before, is a big season.
Big here in Indiana, too.
She breaks it down to times of year to go look for things.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes, because like she has summer, she has this shaggy mane, and this is one that came up. Am I showing that right there? Shaggy mane, right there, right there, right there.
Yeah, I see it.
That came up in my garden this fall, and I was like, "What is that?" And I had to go online, and now I can just pull out this foraging book to see if it's in there. And she also has a lot of great information on how to cook with these things, which is
Yes. Oh
helpful.
my goodness. These are amazing.
And I would like to say that I looked up morels because, again, that's the only one I know. Though I've heard of this chicken of the woods.
Yeah, me too.
I've heard of that one. But the thing is, I looked up the morels and I did not realize, and she said, "Oh, yes, there is the controversy of whether you should soak or not soak your morel mushrooms before cooking them."
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
know
did
about
not
it.
know that. And
Where does she stand?
she's of the no soak. She thinks that they taste better if they're not soaked and the texture stays better. But
I think that's probably true.
the other thing about this book is, did you notice that there are QR codes in here?
Yes, and they're all like exciting things to look at the QR code.
Yeah, so
Like
like even
scan
on the
here to
morels.
check out some of the mushrooms of the fall time, or check out here this mushroom, this giant one I found. This is the other one that we get here a lot.
What is that?
It's in the fall. It's an oyster mushroom, and you find them on trees. And one of my friends found a ton of them, and then she gave me some, and they are amazing. I've grown oyster mushrooms, but she found these, and hers were really good. She had a hunting places in Oklahoma. Now she's moved up to Minnesota, so I won't get any anymore.
So the thing is, and the good mushroom hunters, like with the morels, and we've talked about this before, they never tell their secret about where they found them.
No, they don't.
And
They really don't.
I have had those morels pop up in my back garden twice. And so,
Really?
yeah, we've talked about it,
I have
Dee.
I forgot. We have them here because of the oak trees.
We I don't know. It's because I dug up some wildflowers years ago when they were going to dam up a property. And so in the area that was going to be underwater, I went through and dug up a bunch of wildflowers to transplant into my garden. And I
Mhm.
probably picked up some spores for morel mushrooms. And then it took years. And I remember seeing it the first time and thinking, wow. And then I've always left them because I want those spores to keep, making more.
I
Anyway,
think you're smart. I
yes,
think this is a cool book.
it is a very cool book. It says, Lead expert forager and Appalachian native Whitney Johnson, and her Instagram's very nice. And I do believe that she had, if I'm following the right Instagram account, she just had some major back surgeries, Dee, and so she's recovering from that.
God love her.
And I
Back
think the book,
surgery's awful.
it, I think her book actually comes out March the 25th. We'll check that; it'll be in the show notes. Be your friendly guide to foraging over 50 North American species of edible and medicinal fungi. Forth and Forage is a detailed field guide, yes. To what are you looking at there, Dee?
It's a cute, cute picture of her, and she's with a hen of the, isn't this hen of the woods?
Chicken of the
Chicken of the
woods.
woods.
It's
And
huge.
so look at that thing. And her expression on her face is just, she's cute.
Anyway, I'm trying to tell you about the book.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
From
ahead.
spring treasures such as morels and wood ears to summer finds like black trumpets, chicken of the woods, and bullets, straight through to fall and winter harvests of lion's mane, oyster, and enoki. I don't know that one. Each species profile includes color photos and identification advice to confirm edibility, very important with mushrooms. Tips on how to harvest responsibly, also very important. Culinary preparation advice and recipes so you can feast successfully and deliciously. And she talks about her warm and folksy tone. And yes, this book is written in a warm and folksy tone. I love it.
It's
So
adorable.
it is adorable. How to find them, how to understand their anatomy, and how that informs your harvest. best gear for foraging, including knives and bags and clothes and boots. And we'll talk about what you would wear to forage, Dee, in a little bit. Insect shield clothing.
Yeah, insect shield clothing like I have on right now because I sent my own stuff in. Gosh, I would wear an insect shield scarf, insect shield hat, spray the rest of my body with picaridin shoes, double-sided tape. I won't go on.
Now, here's the other thing. Now, this is getting into some new information. Using spore prints to help confirm proper identification. I'm interested to know more about that. Words of wisdom on what to do before you take a bite, how to be a responsible and ethical forager, some common mushroom myths, and finding some mushrooms in medicinal forms and using those in tinctures and teas. And she says, humans have foraged for wild mushrooms for untold generations. Now, with help from Go Forth and Forage, you'll be on your way to mastering this age-old skill and enjoying all the delicacies the craft of mushroom foraging has to offer. And Dee, it's important if you're going to forage for mushrooms to have a reliable guide.
Absolutely.
Because apparently the foraging community is rightfully upset because somebody's generating artificial intelligence foraging guides, which are incorrect, and you could kill yourself with eating the
Yeah,
wrong
I looked
thing.
up something the other day on Chrome, and it was on my own website, and the artificial intelligence managed to jumble the whole thing up really bad. And I was like, I wouldn't trust them for mushroom hunting.
No, I would not go out with my iPhone and start using it to try to identify mushrooms. I would
No,
take a
no,
book like this and I would study it. And that's how I would do foraging. Now, the morel mushroom, which I didn't think she had on the cover, but I do see it. It's right there. There's one
it's
of
right
them.
there, right in the middle.
Yes. I would use a book like this, and I'm very happy. This one is from our friends at Cool Springs Press and from the Quarto group, and
Yep.
they sent us these review copies. I think this is definitely one. If you live in an area where there are wild mushrooms to forage, or you vacation in such an area, or go for the weekends, this is a great book to have. And
Yeah.
I wish I'd had it as a kid when we'd go with my dad to get morels. That's all we ever looked for was morels. Probably could have got some other things too.
Yeah. What state does she live in? Do we know?
She's Appalachia, and so
That's a big area.
I believe I'm going to guess, and I could probably be wrong. I'm guessing she lives in Eastern Kentucky. I think.
Yeah, maybe. I'll try to figure it out.
She says, "Howdy, foraging friend, Whitney here, or you might know me by my social media handle, Appalachian Forager." I, we should know stuff about that. Let me see if
Sorry, I
it's in the
shouldn't have
back.
asked.
No, that's okay. It's good to know. Let's see.
This is
Uh,
Appalachian.
born and
Ah,
raised in Eastern
born and raised in
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Good.
Eastern
That was good.
Kentucky. Yeah, I
Good
thought
one.
I'd read that. She also fishes, she gardens, she can make jam or jelly out of it, just about anything. She
Yeah,
cooks like your mama. Anyway,
me too. I cook like my mama too. But
she
here's
is
the thing.
fun. Fun to
I
follow on Instagram too.
I think she's adorable. I think she should wear tick clothing because they have ticks up there. But she ain't gonna listen to me. All right, let's go to the next thing. Do you want to repeat the title?
Yes, Go Forth and Forage, a guide to foraging over 50 of the most common edible and medicinal North American mushrooms by Whitney Johnson, the Appalachian Forager.
I'm going to read this quote slowly because I think it's
Meditatively.
when we dig in the soil and plant a seed, we enter into a cycle of restoration that produces wholeness in us. Our bodies are restored by the tilling and the harvesting. Our minds are restored by the space. Such repetitive works open up within us. The earth is restored by the nutrients provided through the plants, and our spirits are revived as we become better stewards at what we have been given, of what we've been given. That's by Jerusalem Jackson Greer. Let's all just take a moment.
Take a moment. So our
All
dirt
right.
this week
Yes, is a
kind
good
of
one
ties
that
into last
fits.
week a little bit.
And it ties into that quote. It's
Yes.
about prairie strips and row row crops. So using prairie strips in between crops.
Right. And so we're going to link to an article with Iowa State
Iowa
University.
State.
And they worked on putting prairie strips in between row crops or plots of row crops, not in. And when they were a minimum between 30 feet and 120 feet wide and ran the length of the field or along the waterways, and they put in native grasses and flowers, they helped to reduce soil erosion. They improved the water quality. They provided for wildfire habitat. And basically, they're better for us.
Huh. You mean like hedgerows in England?
Like
Only
hedgerows in
or
England,
the ones
yes.
that they always show in Farmer Jones' property, where he shows how he plants next to these rows of flowers
Yes.
and stuff. Farmer Lee Jones. Anyway, the it's just logical. I mean, think about it, because then you've got insects, you've got more birds, you've got more rabbits, although rabbits are a pain when their crops are first up. They aren't later. It brings in all kinds of wildlife. And we talked about this before, but it's the same thing out here. I have tons more wildlife than I had before when I had a dog. And that's good and bad, but the truth is we have to learn to live with nature, not keep fighting against it all the time. Except the ticks. The ticks, I'm not sure what God had in mind with those things, or mosquitoes.
No.
Not really sure.
Mosquitoes, then they had to have food for bats. Anyway,
Well,
this
okay.
website, they've really got a ton of information. They've got testimonials from various landowners who have tried this method. They have information on what they are and how you would get started. And so they are claiming 250,000 so far. 250,000 cropland acres have been protected by putting in these prairie strips between different crops.
I wonder if anybody's doing it in Oklahoma, because I think we're still kind of stuck in the model of, fertilize, use, glyphosate, repeat.
And let us remember that glyphosate is no longer on the market for us homeowners. Rightfully so, probably.
But farmers still use it widely. So
Yes, they do. This says it's in 14 states, so I gotta think that it's being used in Oklahoma as well, and I'm hoping in Indiana.
maybe we have a regenerative farm movement in Oklahoma. I bet they do. I'll tell you what, listeners, if you know of anybody who is using this method in Oklahoma, write us.
Yeah,
And same thing with Indiana. Write us.
exactly. And so the other thing they have is they have a women landowner resource guide on this website. They are saying that women landowners control nearly 50% of the agriculture land in the Midwest and are a powerful population for effecting real change in conservation practices. There you
Remember
go.
the landowner in Georgia? He's been on a bunch of podcasts, and
Yes.
his daughter's, he's old now. So his daughter took it over.
So
Go
how
her.
this would relate to a home garden, I am not going to be planting a prairie strip out front or anything. The neighbors would certainly freak out, and I don't have 30 feet wide to do it in anyway. But it is good to know that people are thinking about that farmland and how they can make it a regenerative environment and how they can make it more environmentally friendly.
I think we can relate it to gardeners like this. Okay. So it's no different than when you plant flowers that attract insects in your vegetable garden, beneficial insects. We just do it in miniature. So that's my theory about it. Anything you can do to help bring in beneficials is great.
Like my crocuses that bring in the bees in the
Yeah,
springtime.
because that's
Lots of
very
bees.
early food. Very early
Very
food.
early food. Well, I'll do a quote and we'll talk about rabbit holes.
Okay.
Be the person you've been waiting for. Live your life as if you are the love of it, because that's the only thing you know for sure, that through every triumph, every failure, every fear, and every gain that you will ever experience until the day you die, you are going to be present. Heidi, I'm going to say Preby.
I love it. It's beautiful.
That is
Okay, rabbit holes. Mine is pansies, I think. So everybody knows by now that I planted seeds for pansies back in December because I want to create because it's hard to find blue pansies. You can find them in multiple colors, lots of things. Blue ones are a little harder to find, although they have some at TLC. Shout out to TLC. But I've been looking for Frizzle Sizzle Blue and the lemonade one. And I also like the yellow blue swirl. And those are really hard to find here. So I'm still looking and I've been in kind of a rabbit hole about it. I did see something similar to the Frizzle Sizzle blue and then the white one at Lowe's, and it was in those drop in containers.
Right.
And I'm thinking about buying a couple of the drop in containers, even though they're pricey, and just pulling apart the plants because pansies don't mind being messed with below the soil. They just don't. They're very adaptable little plants. And so I'm thinking about doing that. And then I was trying to decide, did you see Marianne's piece on going to Trader Joe's and getting
Marion Wilburn, yes. She
yeah,
got
what am I trying to
hellebores.
say? Thank you, hellebores. So she got the hellebores and put them in her pots, and then of course she plants them out in her garden afterwards. I shared it on my stories because I thought it was so great, and so I think that white hellebores would look great in with those blue and white pansies in my front pots with a little bit of variegated ivy coming down. What do you think?
I think that would be lovely. And I have not yet been to the
Rabbit hole.
greenhouse. I've not been to the greenhouse yet. I know they have Frizzle Sizzle down there.
Ugh,
They tend to do the
nobody here
mix.
grows it.
She always grows Fizzle Sizzle. Sometimes I think she grows it for me and her because we both love it.
Yeah.
But I am reminded, I'll tell you what, the author of Pansies, Brenna Estrada, went over to Japan to see the the pansies they're breeding over there. There's
Yes.
the pansy book. Yes. Dee,
Beautiful.
we have barely scratched the surface here about pansies. Barely scratched the
Heck yeah.
surface.
I mean, the Japanese manipulate plants like crazy. They're really good at it. And so, of course, they've got cool ones, right?
Very cool ones. She also went to Italy, so that book is coming out. Yeah, Stop It, Dee.
That's Frizzle Sizzle Raspberry that I'm
Yeah,
showing.
that's a beautiful
The
one.
Frizzle Sizzles have the best little faces because they're blurred.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there's
And
okay.
the edges are all roughly.
Yeah, there's Lemonberry. I've been looking for it. Dang it.
Be
I
still my
tried to
heart.
grow it and I'll just say this for people who might want to buy the seeds and start them in summer for the fall. Frizzle Sizzle is slow. Slow to germinate and get going. And that's why I think it's not grown here that much because it's just easier to grow the Delta series, for example. But it's worth it because I grew it last year and it was pretty.
They are very pretty. And so, like I said, I haven't been to the greenhouse yet. It's just been too cold. But in my rabbit hole,
Mhm.
I did finish research on Marian Dulles, the latest lost lady of garden writing. She wrote one book, and it was about greenhouse gardening.
I need it.
She had a greenhouse over in Columbus, Ohio, where her husband was a history professor because that's
Yeah.
the famous Dulles family. And there's actually a Dulles
Yeah,
building
the
at
airport.
the airport,
Yeah. Of
all
course
of
she had
them
a
famous.
greenhouse.
Yeah.
Good for her.
So when I was doing the research, it said in the back that she had written numerous articles. So I pulled out my 1959 horticulture magazines to look to see if she had authored anything in there, because that would have been the right time frame. Because this book came out my copy's from 64, and I think the original one may have been 58. Don't quote me on that.
I
I
just
didn't.
found it on Amazon, by the way,
Yeah, greenhouse gardening through the year,
around the
and
year, but same
and
thing.
she starts in September, and then she goes through all the way to August. But her greenhouse was actually, it was attached to the house, and it was on the south side of her house.
So it was
And
really a conservatory.
kind of, I think that she could open a door, and then heat from the house would go into this greenhouse.
Yeah, that sounds like a conservatory to me.
But I ended with a quote she had on March, which you and I have talked about, which is even in the middle of winter, the plants in the greenhouse really aren't doing much. But when March comes and the days get longer, then the greenhouse, she says, starts acting like the outdoors again. Everything starts to grow.
Yep.
So
I would
that
say
was,
she's right.
yeah. So she's very nice. We'll put a link to that Lost Lady thing. I'm finishing up reading Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. We talked about that before. And I feel like I'm working on my liberal arts degree from college that I never
I
got.
know that you,
Be-
yeah, the one you didn't get, but now
because
you're going to have it. Yeah.
the research that she's done to figure out what did Jane Austen read and why don't we know about these authors? And I'm really learning a lot about the women authors of the 18th and early 19th century. And you could end up with a pretty massive to be read pile from this if you wanted to. I've decided there's one I'm going to read. It's supposed to be like creepy horror related. Don't ask me the name of it right now. And then,
Wait, you're going to read a book that's creepy horror related?
well, actually, I got a copy to listen to, but it was written
So
in the
this is something funny that our listeners don't know about you.
what that I watch creepy horror movies.
Yeah, that you watch a lot of horror movies when they come
No, you
out.
know what? I
You
haven't for
and your
several
best
years.
friend.
Yeah, I haven't for several years because you have to be in the right mood for those.
They're all
Um,
full of jump scares. They scare me to death, but
yeah, there was
which is
one,
so like not like you.
and there was one that I actually saw this in the theater in early 2020 before everything shut down. And there was one scene in this movie that I've never jumped so high out of my seat as I did when this one thing happened. But anyway, way off track.
Sorry.
I did go to I went to Barnes and Noble yesterday, Dee, and because I finished all my Lego projects, and I was going to
Mhm.
bring in one of my Legos, but I didn't bring it in here. I finished one called, what's it called?
It was called the flower bouquet
Yeah, flower bouquet. I put it on
because you
Instagram.
posted about it. Yeah, I
Yes. Yeah,
saw it.
we'll link to it.
You
I finished that. And
It's
then
probably my favorite other than your wildflower one. I really want the wildflower one, but then again, you know,
you didn't put together the one you got, did you?
which one?
Didn't you get one of these kits along the way, but never put it together?
I have two kits. I mean, I have one kit I put most of it together, but then pieces kept falling off and it was kind of driving me crazy. And so I was like, never mind. And so I put it away. And then I never put the bonsai tree together.
The bonsai tree, like I said, the trunk of that
Hard.
tree is very difficult. The container's growing in, easy peasy. That trunk was one of the hardest things I've built from Lego. But anyway,
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
at Barnes and Noble, I thought I didn't think I was going to buy a jigsaw puzzle, and the next thing you know, I'm buying a jigsaw puzzle, and it's beautiful. I sent a picture to you. It's round, and it's Shakespeare's flowers. It's really really pretty. I'm going to put that together while I'm listening to this gothic horror book that I read about from Jane Austen's bookshelf.
But it's
How's
a
that?
gothic horror book. So gothic horror books aren't as scary, in my opinion, as like modern horror stuff.
Yeah, it was written in the
They're
1700s.
they're eerie, and I like
Yes.
eerie. Eerie's fun. Like The Woman in Black. I've read it, and then we watched the movie, and I've listened to it on because I love The Woman in Black. My husband goes, "That wasn't scary at all," and I go, "It
Yes.
was eerie. They
But
could have drowned
anyway,
on the moors.
the
Come on,
library
man."
has the audiobook of this one, and I'll put it in the show notes what it is because I have completely forgotten what it is.
Okay, sounds good. All
Commissions.
right, commissions. All right, quickly. I hope that Luz does come back in a week and we cut down those two male eastern red cedars. And here's why we're cutting them down. Eastern red cedars are invasive in Oklahoma, not just aggressive, full on invasive. That's number one. Number two, the pollen from eastern red cedars causes something called cedar fever, although eastern red cedars are actually junipers. It should be called juniper fever, but I digress. So they put out tons and tons of pollen, and you can tell the males from the females because the males are bright yellow in the spring with all that pollen. They are
Right?
wind pollinated, and they are as bad as ragweed is in late summer. So they're an absolute nightmare. And so we're cutting around for that reason. Third reason is they are fire Roman candles from HE double toothpicks.
Right.
And
We don't want
so
that.
I have one female next to my greenhouse that my garden is named after that Bill's like he can't let go of. But he actually said the other day, hey, because about a month ago, I've been working on him. About a month ago, I said, we can see the lake better because we have a lake behind our property. We can see
Right?
the lake better if that eastern red cedar was gone. And then
Ah,
just the other day, he was outside and he looked at me and he goes, is that the eastern red cedar you want gone? I said, yes, that one and the one across the street because we own that property too. And he said, call Luz and ask him. Well, Luz came by to help me. And I said, guess what? He said, we can. And like I said earlier on the podcast, Luz goes, I'll be back. I'll be back. And he goes, what about the one by the greenhouse? I said, he's not ready yet. So there we go. So we're going to do that. I'm going to plant more seeds because I'm just in seed planting mode. And I thought of something in connection with that. A couple of weeks ago, we had a question where a guy asked about Bloomsdale longstanding spinach and asked if mine worked in February. And I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. He was actually, I think, talking about the kale and that I spread on the snow. I can
right.
say with all assurance to that person, no, it didn't work, but it was old kale seed, so that might have been why, and blah, blah, blah. However, I have a bunch of poppies coming up in that spot from
Very
last year's
nice.
piece, so that's fun. So let's see, what else did I say? Oh, I brought a bunch of my begonias in the house so that I had room in the greenhouse for the seeds. And then on top of that, I planted out some onions and I'm going to redo that pot with seeds and plant more pansies and water stuff in the basement and keep my house plants watered. You?
Excellent. I'm going to buy some pansies and violas this week. Today is Friday. I doubt I get down there today, but I'm definitely going to go first thing Monday morning. And then Dee's holding up that pansy book. Get those
Everyone
planted
should
up.
own this pansy book.
I'm going to figure out what to do with my two cute little snail planters. Where's the little snail planter?
You're going to put pretty little ferns in them.
Something in there. So I'm going to have to get those. And then I'm going to start onion seeds and the rolls. I figured out I have a bunch of paper that was used to wrap things in, those long strips of looks like grocery bag paper. I'm going
Uh-huh.
to use those and then wrap the foam thing around them so that kind of holds the moisture in. I'm going to plant peas, not peas, sweet peas and onions that way. I'm going to try to get that done this weekend, start that new jigsaw puzzle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Spring is coming.
Yeah, it is. It's coming. And in connection with that, if people want me to garden coach them, they need to call me now. I might be able to come to people's houses, but we'll have to talk about it first. And you can't have a bunch of Eastern red cedars. That's how I got sick last year.
Exactly. And we also should mention that the Insect Shield, your affiliate link still works.
Yeah, it's D Nash RDR.
Wanting to get themselves clothed up. And I think I saw something for free shipping, but I don't know how long it lasts. So, anyway, we want to thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
But if you subscribe to our free newsletter, you get a link to listen to the podcast a whole day early, and you get links to the products we discuss. And some of these are affiliate links.
And if you want to help support us, hit those affiliate links, buy something. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but we get a small commission and it helps us pay for podcast hosting.
Or if you want to help us, you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
We want to thank everyone who has done so.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.